Here's proof that the COVID pandemic was actually planned months in advance by world leaders, and the US and China actually colluded to shore up the US banking system by shutting down the entire economy. Now, maybe it's all coincidence, but I'll let you determine that for yourself.
Respiratory coronavirus overtaking Wuhan, China. What do? Oh, you know who we could ask? The Wuhan Novel Respiratory Coronavirus Lab. The disease is the same name as the lab.
As we know, in March of 2020, much of the U.S. economy and the world economy was shut down for the virus. Now, in September of 2019, there was this massive spike in the overnight repurchase agreement market. Now, what this is basically banks don't have enough money to fund their operations for the next day. So what they need to do is lend assets to the Federal Reserve in exchange for a loan that they're expected to pay back the next day. Now, here in September of 2019, this is Treasury securities. Boom, on September 2019, this explodes. Now, here's going to be the total securities. Again, in September 2019, this explodes. And then here you go again, more securities. In September 2019, this blows up. And they're actually loaning people's mortgages to the Federal Reserve in exchange for loans. Now, these charts aren't even showing the full story because according to ChatGPT and other sources, on March 17th, 2020, this market peaked at $496 billion. Now, to put that in perspective for you, Amazon only sells about $350 billion worth of products in all of Mexico, US, and Canada in an entire year. And the banks were passing back more money than that in one night. So all of this was an attempt to shore up the banking system. Now, how did shutting down the economy get money back to banks? Well, if you remember, there were stimulus checks given to people. There was unemployment rates that were higher than people were actually making working a job. And then there was also the forgivable loans given to businesses, essentially printed money, right? So what this did was, yes, it went in the hands of peoples and businesses, but it ended up back in the banks, right? Now, if you look, this is going to be your M2 money supply, or basically all the money people have in the bank. And this is about $20 trillion. And again, in March of 2020, boom, this explodes, right? And then this is the MZM. This is a similar metric, money that's held at banks, including money market funds. And again, in March of 2020, boom, this explodes again. So shutting down the country did get a lot of capital to the banks. Now, the required reserves of depository institutions at the same time was dropped to zero. Now, what this is basically the banks are required to hold a certain percentage of the money that's held in banks. So this shows, they had about 200 billion dollars of the $20 trillion that people had in banks. They were holding that as their reserves. So basically, if you have $100 in the bank, they were required to hold 10% of it. So they had to take $10, and then the other $90 they could loan out for people's mortgages, or they could buy U.S. bonds or U.S. treasuries with it. They could do whatever they wanted with it. Now, in March of 2020, they dropped this to zero. So now the bank doesn't have to hold any of the depositors' money. They can hold zero. Now, even more suspect than that is they discontinued this chart in August of 2020, almost as if they don't ever expect to hold depositors' money ever again. They can just, okay, you deposit money in the bank, I'm going to spend 100% of it. Knowing this, how can we fight back? Well, crypto has been known as a peaceful protest against the U.S. economy. And yes, it does help the U.S. economy, like Trump has recently been saying, but it is a way that we, the people, can demand we want to transact in cryptocurrency. We can, if we're small business owners or we're consumers, we can ask if we can pay in crypto, or we can insist that we want to pay in crypto. We can only contribute to the crypto economy, a world economy that isn't just focused on China or Russia or America. It's going to be all of us together as people. And we don't want this happening to our financial system again. So we need a free market capitalist system that forces governments to live on a budget, because it's obviously, even if they say they're going to try and pay down the deficit, it's not going to happen. So if you want to be part of the financial revolution with me, like and subscribe. And remember, free markets, free people.